As we get closer and closer to November 5th, my anxiety goes through the roof. And it's important that we keep beating the drum about how dangerous and evil Donovan Lecter is. Listen to this clip.
The Democrats say, please don't call them animals. They're humans. I said, no, they're not humans. They're not humans. They're animals.
Okay, this is the kind of stuff that Hitler said about Jewish people in the 1930s. And this is what he's saying out loud about immigrants that live around us, that have businesses around us, that are participating, wonderful members of the community. It's disgusting.
It's disgusting and dehumanizing people. The fact that so many people support this, it's scary. But it's not even that he's hiding it now. In 2016, it was veiled. It was there, but it was veiled. This is just flat out madness. I mean, it's madness.
I don't think in 2016 it was veiled. He came down and called them rapists and criminals and all sorts of stuff.
Right. But I think now he has gotten more craven and more mean and more vile, and his base loves it more.
All right. Next up, we have his opinion about Supreme Court of the United States criticism.
They were very brave, the Supreme Court, very brave, and they take a lot of hits because of it. It should be illegal what happens. You know, you have these guys like playing the ref, like the great Bobby Knight. These people should be put in jail the way they talk about our judges.
Okay, so he wants to incarcerate people that criticize the Supreme Court of the United States of America. And I want to remind everybody, on the Supreme Court, you have Clarence Thomas, whose major benefactor collects Nazi memorabilia as a hobby. You've got Alito, who is some weird sociopath obsessed with anti-gay, anti-woman legislation. His wife, who collects really racist, weird flags. You've got that handmaid, which I'll never understand how somebody with that level of education and has lived a really good life and who claims to be this big Catholic could be so heartless towards marginalized people. You have the beer drinker and sexual predator, Brett Kavanaugh, who had a stage 5 meltdown when Kamala Harris tried to call him out, and who wants to be punitive towards women. These people deserve all of our criticism. And that's what a democracy is. You can stand for the flag. You cannot stand for the flag. You can stand for the national anthem. You can kneel for the national anthem. You can support the Supreme Court. You can criticize the Supreme Court. This is freedom.
Absolutely. And here's the thing that gets my goat the most about it. He is under indictment, as we know, everywhere. He's been convicted. His companies have been found guilty of fraud. He's been found guilty of fraud in the Trump Organization. He has attacked the judges. He has attacked their family members. He has required that these people now live under protection. They have been getting death threats. He is the one that criticized the judiciary more than anybody else. So shut the fuck up. We don't want to hear your opinion because you're the worst offender.
But let's just remember his opinion there is to incarcerate people who use their First Amendment and criticize the Supreme Court. He wants them incarcerated. That includes you and me.
Oh, well, sure.
Way down on the ladder. But he wants to incarcerate people that don't agree with him. And what people need to know about Nazi Germany is, yes, he went primarily after the Jewish population, but he also went after the LGBTQ plus population. He also went after and sent his goon squad to beat up people that disagreed with him. And they also went to concentration camps. So his language and his policies from the moment he came down that escalator to now have all been fascist propaganda from the jump. When he won the president and he stood there in Washington, D.C., and he gave that dark speech, the only thing that protected us somewhat is, number one, he wasn't ready. He didn't think he would win, and there were some guardrails. Now they are telegraphing exactly what they're going to do. And there's not a person that works on this podcast that wouldn't fall prey to what he wants to do. They're already talking about, a lot of the people that speak say they want to be able to report on your neighbors.
Right.
It's this really, really dangerous anti-freedom, anti-democratic, anti-First Amendment rhetoric that should terrify the shit out of every American. And here's what I think. So I played this next clip. I played from this MAGA preacher before, and I want to play this clip from him, a new one from him, because I think the Supreme Court justices that I spoke about earlier, this guy says their quiet part out loud. This guy fits under this tent where all of these hateful MAGA Republicans sit, where they hide behind their religion, and they use their religion to hide behind. And don't persecute us, but they also use it as a spear to spear into everybody because they feel so sanctimonious. Listen to this MAGA Trump supporting preacher.
I think the 19th Amendment should be repealed. I think that because, well, first and foremost, because I'm a Christian, and that is the Christian position. Oh my gosh, you're saying that? Yes, that is the Christian position. By repealing the 19th Amendment, just for the record, it's not just trying to take away a female vote, but it's trying to say, no, there's a family vote. Right. There's a household. And it's like, well, where do women get their voice? Where women get their voice is from their father, from their husband. If they're not married, it's from their father. If they're not married and their father is dead, it's from their brother, it's from their uncle, it's the men in their lives that love them. Okay.
I can tell you with 100% certainty, if we saw his browser history, it is full of S&M, for sure, violent shit towards women. There is no question that this man has massive and severe religious trauma and damage. And he was told that when he felt horny, that he was naughty, that he was dirty, that he was a sick little boy. And that created hatred of women, the object of his desire. He was told in his faith, if you like that, then you are being unfair to God and you're being mean to God, and God hates you for that. So you have to hate that. That's what all of this comes from. And I believe that these Catholics on the Supreme Court are completely in line with him. There is the, Opus Dei, and there is these really dark religious movements that are behind the outward-facing part of MAGA. You have the National Prayer Breakfast, Opus Dei, all of these crazy evangelical mega churches. They put out this big show, but behind that, they believe that women should submit to their husbands, and they believe it because they're good Christian folk that believe in the Bible.
They think it's their divine right as men to rule over women and everybody else. And it's gross. I mean, I hear that and I'm physically, I have a visceral response to that because it is so offensive and insulting. And it just grosses me out. He grosses me out.
And I don't think that this guy's in a vacuum.
No, absolutely not. He is saying what everybody else thinks. All these women, white women that look like us, that are pro-MAGA, I'm like, this is your guy. This is what they want. They want to take every bit of your agency away, starting with your health care. Next, it'll be your vote. Keep you in poverty, keep you in abusive marriages. They don't give a fuck as long as they're the big dog in the house. It's gross.
He just said out loud what Project 2025 drags out over 900 pages.
That's right.
And there is a space in the MAGA party for all of this hate, division, misogyny, racism. And listener, in the closing days of this race, I think it is going to be incredibly important for each of us to reach out to potential Trump voters in our lives and say, how can you do it? How can you vote this way? How are you okay with the subjugation of women when I'm a woman, when you're a woman, or you have a daughter, or you have a mother yourself? I think that the media narratives, everybody finds themselves into their own bubbles, and they get confirmation bias, but all of us have people that are MAGA in our lives. All of us have them. And it's just gotten to where it's like, okay, we can't have a conversation with them. But I heard somebody on the news over the weekend, or maybe it was on a YouTube video, talk about the importance of the person-to-person impact that we could have. And it's a dangerous thing to tiptoe into. There's no question about it, listener. But truly, how? The question we have to ask our loved ones is, how can you vote for that? How can you vote for somebody who is so cruel and cheer when he says cruel, hateful things about women and minorities? It's just beyond the pale. But in this last clip, I want to play Barack Obama, who is, no question, if they start, incarcerating people that believe differently, would be at the top of the list. And a superintendent running in North Carolina has tweeted some very, very horrible things about him. And here's the way he responded.
I've taken special interest in following the school superintendent race down here in North Carolina. In part because apparently the Republican candidate's been spreading conspiracy theories and thinks I should face a firing squad. So I guess I am self-interested in...
Here's what is remarkable, really, to point out. There's so much crazy shit said in the MAGA universe. Mm-hmm. Nobody ever says, whoa, that's not welcome under this tent. Like you crazy superintendent in North Carolina. Nobody says to Mark Robinson, who's running for governor in that state, that's a bridge too far. Nobody says, we're not going to talk about firing squads on a former president of the United States of America whom you happen to disagree with politically. No, we're not going to talk about removing the 19th Amendment. Nobody stands up for anybody. Nobody corrects the record ever. And it's day in, day out, onslaught of evil shit that is said to where people just now accept it and they go with it. And it's not acceptable. I mean, what that superintendent that's running in North Carolina said is unacceptable. It is criminal. It is inhumane. It's completely anti-democratic. It's insanity. What that preacher says, that more Christian leaders are not standing up and saying, this guy is not welcome here. This guy is evil. This guy is a charlatan. The fact that more Christian leaders aren't calling out all these mega churches that are fleecing the public and feeding them a steady diet of tithe, hate, and MAGA, and people aren't calling them out, it's just unbelievable. But Kamala Harris or Barack Obama misstep a slight bit and they all have stage 5 meltdowns?
Yeah, it's really unbelievable because you look at the real human cost to this. First of all, it's 2024 and we're talking about firing squads and rounding people up and putting them in internment camps. Donald Trump brags about going back to the 1700s. I mean, are you fucking kidding me? But like, for a perfect example, the Springfield, Ohio, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, bomb threats. People wouldn't leave their houses. Kids can't go to school. Like, it has a real world impact. Nobody says it's wrong. Donald Trump doesn't come out and say, you know what, I spread misinformation. I'm sorry. FEMA, they say all these terrible lies about FEMA to people whose worlds are shattered. And you know what happens? Then MAGA goes out and threatens FEMA workers, threatens their lives. Do you think that they said, you know what, stop, we need to help these people? No, they continue with the lies. So the real world cost of these words, when is that going to resonate with people on that team? People are hurting. People's lives are being ruined because of lies. January 6th insurrection is a perfect example. Donald Trump and his MAGA are ruining people's lives, and nobody in their tent gives a shit.
But I think that's their point.
Yeah.
I think the cruelty is the point. That's their objective. That's the objective. They like the cruelty. They like to sow division. They don't give a fuck about human suffering. And they have all of these tens of millions of charlatans that follow them that are right there with them, lapping up the cruelty, salivating, chomping at the bit, can't wait for more of it.
It's really sad.
All right, get out and vote, people.
It's so